For most of us, the State Department of Children and Families is an abstraction, a faceless bureaucracy that deals with other people's problems. It's only top of mind when something terrible happens, like the apparent homicide of 5-year-old Jeremiah Oliver, who was under state supervision. But for thousands of children across the Commonwealth, DCF is a safety net. And so as part of our in-depth focus report, WGBH News reporter Adam Reilly went inside the agency to talk directly with DCF employees about the difficult decisions they face each day.
Colleen Pretoni's days as a DCF social worker tend to be packed, and yesterday was no exception. We caught up with her as she headed to a meeting with a Weymouth couple that's asked for state help with their 2 children.
Since July, the girl has been in and out of 3 different placements. She's had brief periods of stability and been able to come home, and her brother, who's younger, is in a group home. The boy internalizes more, and when he has an explosive incident, it's much more destructive and harmful.
The parents seemed genuinely happy to see Pretoni, but when talk turned to their children, the mood darkened. For their son, school is a struggle.
I hate school.
Okay.
The law says he has to go, doesn't say he has to do the work.
Oh, okay.
And over the weekend, their daughter's visit home from foster care ended badly.
I asked her to get into the car. When she came around the corner, She said, "I'm not going." I threatened to call the police.
Okay. And that's what got her in the car?
That's what got her in the car, kicking and screaming.
But amid all this dysfunction, Pretoni saw signs of progress. The father said he'd start attending a parenting class, and the mother seemed to be becoming more assertive with her kids.
It went well. It went really well. This is a family who is easy to work with.
And that's a welcome morale boost.
It's an incredible burden, to leave at the end of the day, hoping that the work you've done that day and the interventions you've done on behalf of children and families has kept the child safe.
Pretoni says no one who works for DCF takes their job lightly, and that in the wake of Jeremiah Oliver's tragic disappearance, DCF staff are being unfairly maligned. She's not the only employee who's frustrated.
I go into homes with people that have just been released from jail. I go into homes where there's a lot of drug activity and sex offenders. I'm going into these homes alone.
Michelle Frasca has been a DCF caseworker for 18 years. She says that on the job she's physically vulnerable and that taking children from unsafe homes takes an emotional toll.
Having to physically take that child and have to explain to that child as they're crying for their mother why I'm doing this, try to comfort them, all the while not letting my emotions get involved, because it's hard.
Adding to the challenge, she says, a growing caseload that makes her job even tougher.
There's been an increase in families being filed on and an increase in social workers' cases. We used to be at 15. Now I'm at 21 and a half.
And both Frasca and Pretoni say they're frustrated with depictions of DCF as a cold, uncaring bureaucracy.
I think of the kids I work with as my kids. If you walk through the office, everyone will refer to the kids on their caseload as their kids. And so I get upset and I get defensive when I hear other people really put down social workers as maybe not doing a good job or not being competent or not caring for the families they work with, because we do.
So, Emily, that family that we watched Colleen visit with, when the camera stopped rolling, they didn't want us to show their faces. When the camera stopped rolling, the mother raved about how much DCF has helped them, how they'd be in terrible shape if it weren't for the department, how helpful Colleen has been. The caveat there, of course, is that they actually asked the state for help with their 2 children, who they have these huge challenges with. And obviously sometimes DCF takes children out of homes against the parents' wishes, and if we had been in a household like that, we probably would have heard something very different.
So I saw you working the phones on this rigorously for days. How hard was it to get anybody from the social services unit to agree to even talking to you?
It was a lot harder than I expected it to be, which may have been naive, because obviously this is an incredibly fraught time politically for DCF. And you have the department's interests on the one hand, or the interests of the people running the department. Then there's the interests of the union. They've been at loggerheads in the wake of the Oliver case coming to light and getting a lot of public attention. But ultimately, under the watchful eye of representatives from both the union and the state. We were able to interview first Michelle Frasca, and then only watched by the state, for what it's worth, able to interview Colleen afterward. So.
All right. Adam Reilly, thanks for that.
Thanks, Emily.
Well, my next guest has been vocal in response to the intense scrutiny of DCF. Jason Stefani is Director of Communication for SEIU Local 509, a union representing DCF workers. Welcome to Greater Boston, Jason.
Thanks for having me.
So listening to the caseworkers, some say that their caseload has gone from 15 to 21 cases. The governor has recently said he wants to get that back down to 15. Is that reasonable? Is that the maximum, or is it possible to handle as many as 21?
You know, it's a national standard that's been known for many, many years that a single social worker can handle no more than 15 cases separately. When we're talking about a single case, that may mean 3, 4, or more children, and that doesn't account for the judges, the police officers, the teachers, other social workers, daycare providers, all of the collateral contacts that a social worker needs to have. In fact, we were looking at the average social worker who has, let's say, 18 cases on their plate. That may mean upwards of 250 collateral contacts each month. So we know what the standard is, and we need to get back down to it.
Now, I'm sure you're going to be sensitive about some of the criticism you've seen in the paper. One was that in the case of the caseworker taking care of the Oliver case, that caseworker didn't show up 20% of the time. Then it turns out that caseworker wasn't alone, that's almost the norm, that they don't show up 20% of the time. How do you respond to that?
Well, the single largest determiner in whether or not a social worker is going to have success with any given family is the amount of time they can spend. They need that time to build a relationship. When you've got 18, 20, 25, we have some social workers with 40 cases on their plate or more. There are more children than there are days in the month to do these home visits. And that's ultimately the goal, is you want to have, at the very least, one face-to-face meeting with the child. Now, again, not counting meetings with their teachers, with other social workers, with doctors and lawyers and things like that.
So presumably they call and say, I can't make it. They don't just no-show.
Correct. I mean, there are two ways. The department actually tracks when children have been seen or not seen, when other contacts have been made or not been made. So that system is in place to check to make sure that those visits are happening. Social workers do, however, raise red flags when they're unable to meet that caseload. There's a formal caseload grievance process where every time they get that report out that shows them how many cases they have on their plate, they can fill that out and say, I'm worried about the number of cases on my plate and that I'm not making these visits.
I'm sure you saw over the weekend our partners at NECIR discovered that in 10 years, 95 children have died that are in the care of DCF. And they say it's likely far more than that, but it's hard to document that. Does that sound normal to you because these kids are in such difficult situations, or is that way out of whack?
I mean, any death under any circumstances of a child is a tragedy, let alone those that are engaged with the Department of Children and Families. There's no doubt about that. What we do know is that there are about 100,000 children that come in and out of the department's purview every single year. There are only about 2,500 frontline social workers, 300 supervisors and investigators when you add it all together. So you can do the math on that. There's an incredibly large number of children that come in and out of the department. These social workers get as deeply involved with every single one of these families as they can. You heard earlier that most of them refer to these children as their kids.
Yeah.
I mean, they spend time with them every day. So it's an incredibly difficult situation when any child passes away. But if there's anything that we can learn from this tragedy, any positive steps that we can take to move forward, it will be that we can get the department the resources and tools it needs to fulfill its mission, which is keeping kids safe from abuse and neglect.
One of the disturbing things that came out, I think, in the Boston Herald today was that to qualify as a foster parent, you can have committed any number of up to 110 criminal offenses that include trafficking, child pornography. I mean, it's a stunning number of offenses. Is that right?
I mean, ultimately, social workers are agents of the government. They are there to uphold the laws that we pass as a legislature, as a Commonwealth. So they don't get to control the regulations of who is engaged or who is eligible and who is not. I mean, obviously, reports like that are disturbing.
But doesn't that lower the standard of who can be a...
You know, we do need stringent standards on who can participate, who can engage with the Department of Children and Families, whether that's in a social work capacity, foster care capacity, or otherwise. But again, you know, we're just out there carrying out the law as it stands. And until we can get to a place where social workers can spend 24 hours a day, 7 days a week with every one of these families, you know, they can't prevent everything from happening, unfortunately.
All right. Jason Stefani, thanks for coming tonight.
Thank you.